Welcome to part 2 of this video series. In this video we are going to be picking the correct subject matter. Because you have a limited tonal range, color gamut, you need to either find a photo that'll work or deliberately shoot photos that will work for this particular process. So if you're wondering about the thumbnail in the intro video and this picture that's currently on the screen and the thumbnail for this video, what I did was I found a way to use my photo editing software to predict what the photo should look like, or at least very close to what it should look like when it's done printing in this method. So what you're looking at is a prediction. Now, I might make a video on how to do that because it's kind of helpful for any alternative photographic process. If you're toning or making multiple layers, it'll give you an idea of what it should look like, and that's kind of what helped me do all this. I'm using it here to save time. I did a still life shoot last night to make photos specifically for this video series, and I was able to use this technique to basically figure out what I wanted them to look like before I took them. But that, like I said, that's for another video. This is just to help us figure out how it should look so we can move forward with the next phase. So using that predictive technique I was mentioning, what you're looking at is a color wheel. So I have a standard contrast and a high contrast version of this color wheel. I've used the predictive method I talked about to show what it's doing whenever you're separating the negatives and using your particular process. And if you see here, I'm even trying to mimic the staining the particular toning agent has, so you can see as close to possible as what the image would look like when it's done. But anyway, so this is what I meant by limited color. This is what it would look like coming straight off a color printer, and this is the predicted outcomes of what it would look like with this process. Now, this is representing the center section is representing combining the magenta and yellow negatives together. I know it's hard to tell from these color wheels. It kind of look ugly and it's really hard to tell from them, but they do help you kind of figure out what you need to do to make your picture look, or what kind of picture you need to look good. Because if you see, the high contrast one's a little easier to tell. This is just kind of showing you all the colors in between. So this is, on the right, is if you only use the cyan and magenta layers only and just throw out the yellow one. So this is the range you'll get altogether. This is just showing you when you combine the two. It's basically just a mirror. It's replacing all of that. So it just mirrors the magenta and the yellow, and that's what you get. But I do that because I think it has better tonal range. But on the right, it gives you a better sense of what the outcome will look like, from all the way to this white to black to everywhere in between. So if you look, this will help you decide. See, red is going to be just a dark brown. It's sort of a reddish, but it depends on how alkaline your water is. When you're shifting from red to kind of a magenta color, it's just going to be a lighter brownish red. Blue is, of course, your cyan blue, and then light blue is light blue. But as you see, if you replace both layers, green now becomes dark blue and yellow becomes light brown. So this picture is both helpful and confusing, but it's useful. It's showing this is what you start out with, and this is what you end up with whenever you either combine the negatives or separate the negatives. Okay, so that's the first important thing. This is giving you an idea of what to start looking for. So I'm not covering it in this video. I just wanted to kind of give you a demonstration of what else this can show you. So this is the same predictive thing I'm talking about, but this is if you use the Duotone method with just yellow and blue layers, or just the yellow and cyan negatives. So you see it's it's similar in how it's working, but it's showing you exactly what you're getting. So if you see, you get from and I did the same thing here. So on the right is if you just use the cyan and yellow negative, and in the center is if you combine magenta and yellow and use them as one and separate the cyan. So it's again a mirror image, because that's what it's doing, but that's just telling you what you're going to get when you do that. And if you see, it has its own color range. It's just not what I'm looking for my particular taste. I prefer to just do a full 3-color, and I will hopefully make a video of that soon. I haven't tested that, but I want to get this out of the way first. But this is just to give you an idea of what the color ranges for your Duotones, whether you do magenta cyan or yellow cyan, would look like. Now the next question is why? Well, if you look at the one on the left, this is the predicted Duotone outcome. It does look kind of dull, but the one on the right is just the predicted cyanotype outcome. There's nothing wrong with it, it's fine, but as you see, it's not very interesting as far as there's no separations or anything. Like, see, this just looks like one solid. You can't even tell that's two different colors. Well, obviously it's blue, but there's not like a darker or lighter, nothing. So this is what it enables you to do. See, you can see blue, you can see this is red, but it's kind of a dull brown. There was a red flower in the box. You can see more detail. To me, it looks really nice. So that's kind of the point of this, is it gives you more options with the same thing, if you will. So this is showing you what the advantage of this system is. You can actually, it's not necessarily that you have these bright, vibrant colors, because it's just not really possible, but with the right techniques, you can trick your eye into seeing more than what's there anyway. So the main part of this video is what will look good with the picture what's going to work for this process. So if you look here, it's kind of high contrast, but you have bright reds, you have blue, you have brown, more blue, and so you actually get color separation here, and it doesn't look too bad. Here, it looks awful. In my opinion, it's just awful. So what colors work with this? Reds, blues, browns, whites, and blacks. Those render fine. Basically, you want to avoid green and yellow at all costs. Now see, the green stems here render out as kind of a brownish. Of course, this is brown too. It's just kind of a dull, rusty brown. I think that's the main takeaway from this, is what colors to avoid. And because you need them to show up more, you need them to be more contrasting than you might normally. So make sure they're contrasting, make sure you avoid yellows and greens, because that's what's I mean, if you just look at those, that's why it's important to pick the photo that you want. It needs to be, you either need to use a photo that has the characteristics that work well, or you need to take a photo that will work with the process. Here's another example of what works and what to avoid. See, this is yellow and green, all the things I said don't. So this is just flat and ugly. This one, again, it's kind of dull, but you have some separations and you can identify what's going on here. So, I mean, that's, again, avoiding yellows and greens. Here's another example. So, you see here, this one looks pretty good, even though it's got the limited color. But you see the yellow and the green you lose. I mean, you can kind of keep it interesting and make it still work. But over here, this just looks awful. There's nothing there. It just looks terrible. Now this is the final example I'm going to use, and you can see again the difference. This has got separation, but it just, because of that, it just looks dull. Now, this, where I said avoid yellows and greens, that's where the other process does shine. When you're doing the yellow and cyan layer, that's where that one does work and works well. So you need to pick your subject specifically for Duotone, the Duotone process. You have to be very particular about what your subject matter is for it. So it adds a complication to it, but that can be fun sometimes. So I'm going to end this video on this note. So, like I said, pick your subject matter, but I wanted to point this out. This process does really well with flesh tones. Not obviously color accurate or anything, but it looks really well. So again, this is where cyanotype, I mean, it's on your taste, but this is the original. This is what it would look like as a cyanotype, and this is what it would look like as a Duotone for this process. I guess the point I'm trying to make here is portrait photography, if you wanted to do like nude photography or still life photography, those things should work fine with it, as long as you're, making sure you got some contrasting colors. I would say the biggest no, or just not very well, would be landscape photography because of all the greens and yellows in that. So I'm going to end this video, and the next video I'm going to try to make that one today as well. The next video will be actually taking these pictures and adjusting them and separating them and making the negatives and all of that process. So I'm going to end this video here, and I will see you in the next one.